Hey there, my name is PJ. Something that you may know is that I like Pokemon. Like, an unhealthy amount. I got my first game on Christmas 2016 being Pokemon Moon, though I only really got super into it when we were going on vacation to a beach for a couple days. The point is, Pokemon has changed my life. I typically try to complete the Pokédex in each game, but the first time I actually succeeded was in Legends Arceus, though I did end up completing my Pokédexes in Sword and Violet. Violet, though, was when I made my first ever living Pokédex. A living Pokédex, or living dex for short, is when you catch one of each individual Pokemon instead of just one from the evolution line and then evolving it. For example, if I caught a Pichu, then evolved it up into Pikachu and then Raichu, that would only count for Raichu in the living dex. I would have to catch another Pichu and Pikachu in order to complete the line. Now, why did I just go through that long and probably incredibly boring introduction? Well, on October 16th of 2024, it was announced that anyone who transferred all the Pokemon from the Paldea, Kitakami, and Blueberry Pokédexes into Pokemon Home would obtain a Shiny Meloetta. This was the first time a Shiny Meloetta was ever able to be obtained, at least legally. Unfortunately, I never actually completed my Violet Living Dex, only missing 2 Pokemon, so I couldn't obtain this Pokemon that had been sought after for well over a decade. However, this wouldn't be the only shiny Pokemon available this way. On January 18th, Shiny Manaphy and Enamorus were made available for transferring the Sinnoh and Hisui Pokédexes respectively, with Enamorus sparking some discussion Ultra Balls. Shiny Keldeo and Meltan were made available through Pokédex completion just like the others. Keldeo required the completion of the Galar, Isle Varmer, and Crown Tundra Pokédexes, but Meltan required all of the original 150 Kanto Pokémon. Shiny Meltan was already obtainable, but only via Pokemon Go for a limited time. Keep in mind that in order to register the transferred Pokemon in the game Pokédexes, the Pokemon needs to originate from that game, so you can't take a Marini from Scarlet and have it registered to the Galar Pokédex, even if you transfer it to Sword and Shield. That introduction was probably way longer than it needed to be, but I decided to challenge myself to catch every single Pokemon in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and create a living dex entirely by myself. So, without further ado, let's get into the challenge. I got my Switch 2 and booted up Let's Go Eevee, where I met my childhood friend Trace in my house and the esteemed Professor Oak on Route 1. Then Wild Eevee suddenly shows up, which doesn't make any sense because Eevee isn't found remotely close to Pallet Town, but I catch him anyway, making him my very first Pokemon. However, this Eevee doesn't actually count for the living dex since there's no way to transfer it to home, so I had to catch our actual first Pokemon on Route 1. I somehow struggled to catch the very first Rattata using 4 balls before catching it. What a great start to the challenge. Things did get better though, as I caught a Bellsprout and Pidgey soon after, both being important for later. I won't be listing every single Pokemon I catch, just the ones that are relevant. I then deliver a parcel to Professor Oak, get some raspberries which give wild Pokemon a higher catch rate, then fight Trace for the first time with my Eevee decimating his Pikachu. Spoiler alert, this is not the last we'll see of Eevee being overpowered. Now you may notice throughout this challenge that I have a couple of random Pokemon in my party. Well, that's because I'd like them to get experience over time so I can cut back on the amount of grinding I'll have to do later. This method paid off in Viridian Forest, where I managed to complete Butterfree's evolution line. Now in Viridian Forest is where I start doing something called a catch combo. A catch combo is when you catch multiple of the same Pokemon in a row. These are very useful because they not only increase the experience we gain from the combo bonus, but it also increases the chance of rare spawns. Rare spawns, or special spawns as the community calls them, are Pokemon in a certain area that are incredibly rare to find, much rarer than other Pokemon in the area. Creating a catch combo increases the odds of finding a rare spawn significantly, and the only rare spawn here is Bulbasaur. Yeah, you heard me right. Let's Go is the first mainline game where you can catch starters in the wild without any restrictions like QR codes or, even worse, friends. All 3 of the Kanto starters can be found across the region. While Charmander and Squirtle are in multiple locations, Bulbasaur is only found in Viridian Forest, so it's better to get one now, though I will have to come back here to catch another. Before I left though, I did also catch Pikachu. Thought I should mention him since he's, you know, the mascot of the entire franchise. After that trek, I reached Peter City, then showed the guy my Bellsprout so I can actually enter the gym, and then proceeded to wipe the floor with all the gym trainers and Brock with my Eevee. Then I meet Blue, who yaps about filling out a Pokédex with paper or whatever, and I go along my merry way to Route 3, where I encounter an Ekans, a version exclusive. Remember that term. I also remember something very useful that could be a lifesaver in the challenge: local multiplayer. By connecting another Joy-Con, a support trainer will appear who not only makes every single battle a 2 against 1, but more importantly assists with catching Pokemon. Except on water, which I would not find out until later. The best part about this is that it's probably easier to use both trainers by yourself than it is to actually use it as co-op with another person. Just know that you will see this being used throughout the challenge. I then enter Mount Moon, where I meet Team Rocket for the first time. Team Rocket is a criminal organization made up of thugs who mainly steal Pokemon, but also do other things. Here, they're trying to steal fossils so they can sell them. How basic. I chase them out of Mount Moon while also somehow managing to find and catch every single Pokemon in the area, including the rare spawn Chansey and a wild Clefable, which ended up taking all of my Great Balls, so that was fun. At the end of the mountain caves, I found an aggressive super nerd named Miguel who managed to find 2 different fossils, but got greedy and fought me over them. He then decided, after a battle, to let me choose one of the fossils, in which I chose the Helix fossil. I then fought Jesse and James in a double battle. Yes, I mean that Jesse and James, the ones from the anime.
This kid looks a lot like you.
You think so? He looks pathetic.
That's what she means!
After leaving Mount Moon, I head into Cerulean City, where I get a higher level Bulbasaur from a lady who I add to my team. I also find Trace again, who battles me in a state of panic before revealing that he encountered a talking Pokemon at the house up ahead where a Pokemon fanatic is said to live. Before I can cross the bridge, I go back to the Pokemon Center and meet a man who can teach my Eevee some special moves. Now is the perfect time to finally talk about the partner Eevee. Normally, Eevee is a pretty weak Pokemon, only having a base stat total of 325 being shared with Pokemon like Grimer and Magnemite. However, the partner Eevee has a base stat total increase of 110 points, bumping up its base stat total to 435. This Eevee is essentially a permanent Mega Evolution, and it even gains more points than one. But there are Pokemon with higher base stat totals in the game, like Nidoking at 505 or Snorlax at 540. Why is this Eevee that can't even evolve so good? Well, that's because of its signature moves taught from this man. Even though the moves' names sound like they were made by a toddler, these are probably some of the most overpowered moves in the entire series. Let's take Sizzly Slide for example. It's a fire type move at 90 base power, which for this early in the game is insane, and it always burns the opponent. Yeah, so I burn and zap through Nugget Bridge and find a guy who will give me a Charmander if I'd caught 50 Pokemon. Which I hadn't. So I made sure to do that real quick, as well as catch some extra for another starter, including a few Meowth. Remember these Meowth. During this, my Pidgey and Bulbasaur evolved into Pidgeotto and Ivysaur, so the team is starting to come together. Not that it matters, because Eevee is still absolutely broken. Down the road, I find a standalone house, which is a very strange Nidorino who can stand and talk, absolutely insane. The Poison Pin Pokemon calls himself Bill and says that he screwed up and combined himself with a Nidorino while doing an experiment with Pokemon teleportation. So I activate his cell separation system, which why would anyone ever need something like that? And out of the machine comes a white boy with a cat mouth. I am not making this up. To thank me, he gives me 2 tickets for a luxury cruise. Hey Bill, if you need any other favors that pay well, I would be happy to take care of them. Anyways, I swept the Cerulean Gym using Buzzy Buzz, found a house that was broken into, and got the stolen Dig TM back, which I then stole for myself. I'm evil. On the way to Vermilion City, Charmander evolves into Charmeleon. Then in Vermilion City itself, Officer Jenny gives me a Squirtle since I've caught 60 Pokemon. Since there were no more gift Pokemon that required a certain amount of Pokemon, Mr. Wise Guy here decided to release all his duplicates of Pokemon that he didn't need to evolve. Man, I said Pokemon a lot in that sentence. Including his Meowth, completely forgetting that there was a woman here who would give him an Arcanine if he caught 5 Meowth. This is the only way you can get Arcanine in Let's Go Eevee without trading, and it's also a Pokemon that we can ride on, letting us move faster across Kanto. But for now, I board the SS Anne, fight every single trainer on the ship, including Trace, and have Eevee learn his first secret technique, Chop Down. Chop Down lets Eevee, chop down any small trees in my path, including the one that's blocking the way to the gym. How do they expect challengers to get in here? In any case, I take out the trash and then walk with Misty over to the entrance of Diglett's Cave. You'll never guess what I caught there. At the end of Diglett's Cave, I found Professor Oak's assistant who teaches Eevee the secret technique Light Up. Then Trace takes me over to the east side of Cerulean, but I decided to go back to Route 11, catch some more Pokemon, and then Pewter City to pick up an old Amber. Before this though, my Squirtle had evolved into Wartortle. I also went through Mount Moon again to find a hidden Moonstone that I used to evolve one of my Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, and then I caught the other Meowth I needed, allowing me to finally get Arcanine. Traveling on Arcanine's back, I breezed through Route 9 and reached Route 10 where I got ambushed by Team Rocket. Luckily, Lorelei of the Elite Four was there to take out 3 of them while I only had to deal with 1. But let's be real, I wouldn't have needed her help anyway. Then I headed into the rock tunnel where I found some neat catches like Rhyhorn, Golbat, and even a second Charmander. And then...
Shiny Cubone? What? Oh my goodness! I thought that I might get a shiny Pokemon, but... What? That's actually insane! I didn't think I'd find a shiny Pokemon on the first day.
That's right. I found a random, full odds, 1 in 4,096 shiny Cubone. I knew it would probably happen at some point during the challenge, but I didn't think it would happen on the first day. I also found another Charmander not that long after, so it's safe to say that I had some insane luck in Rock Tunnel. I also made sure to catch 2 Graveler while I was here. Then I reached Lavender Town where I fight Trace again and encounter some ghosts in Pokemon Tower. Well, time to book it outside. At the edge of the town, the Cubone that I saw in the tower gets kidnapped by Team Rocket. For all the kids out there, if you're lost and a stranger says they've seen your legal guardian, whether that be a parent or a caretaker, do not follow them. In any case, I head over to Celadon City and find Brock, who gives me some Peter Crunchies and tea. Then give that tea to the thirsty guard so I can access Saffron City. I'm not going to do much here yet, but I do make a bit of headway into the fighting dojo before leaving because the Pokemon type there are higher level and use Eevee's only weakness as its main type. Heading back to Celadon, I decide to sightsee in the city and find, hello there, beautiful. What do you mean I can't gamble in this game? Unfortunately, I can't spend all my life savings I've made over the past day on gambling, so I decided that instead of going to therapy, I would pin the blame onto Team Rocket and break into their hideout. Jesse and James were actually pretty difficult, and Archer gave me a little bit of trouble, but Big Boss Giovanni was like fighting Youngster Joey's level 4 Rattata with Ultra Necrozma using light that burns the sky. Absolutely pathetic for the Big Boss. Then again, my Eevee could solo Ultra Necrozma. I mean, it's only a 319 base stat total difference. Oh god, we are so screwed. After beating him, Giovanni gives me Cubone and the Silph Scope, so I head back to Pokemon Tower with Eevee's new flying machine to discover that the ghosts were actually ghost types, and I catch a Ghastly and Haunter, and Ivysaur also evolves into Venusaur. Further up, I find the Mother of All Ghosts, which turns out to be Cubone's mother, a Marowak that Team Rocket had killed. After reuniting with her son, her soul finally goes to the afterlife to be at rest, and Trace leaves the tower with Cubone, leaving me to go to the top of the tower, where I find Jesse and James harassing an old man named Mr. Fuji. They were still difficult, but I was able to beat them thanks to Venusaur's help. After that, Mr. Fuji gives me the Poké Flute, but first I head back to Celadon because I completely forgot to go to the gym. After blazing through the grass gym with Sizzly Slide, seriously, it's not even funny anymore, it's just overpowered, I go to the west side of the town to find a fat Snorlax blocking the way. Look at it, it's sleeping so peacefully. How could I possibly wake up such a beautiful and marvelous creature? Snorlax hated that and tried to kill me, so I set it on fire and then caught it with an excellent double Ultra Ball. After that, you'd think my next encounter would be something normal. I thought so too until I found this Dodrio. Then I head to Pokemon Road and somehow find a Rapidash, which, after catching, causes my Pidgeotto to finally evolve into Pidgeot. I haven't talked about Pidgeot much, but just know that she's been my old reliable after Eevee. Speaking of Eevee, he learns how to absolutely shred it on water in Fuchsia City. Like, dang. On the shore, I spot Jesse and James again, who have found some golden teeth, but they're just disgusted by it and decide that the kid that's been foiling all of their plans should have it. You know what? Sure. I deliver the gold teeth to this guy chilling at his house, and he teaches Eevee how to use the final secret technique, Strong Push. It's not useful right now, but I will need it later. I realize that I'm running dangerously low on berries and discover that there isn't a place where you can buy them, so I look up the best method for farming them. Imagine my surprise when I learn that it's right here. On Route 17, also called Pokemon Road, there are these yellow flowers that will have berries in them. They're hidden items, but you can look at your partner's tail to tell when you're next one, so I take a few laps around the route, where I also do some battles to level up my Pokemon, and finally register Eevee towards the challenge total by catching 4 of them. Since I have Sea Skim, I can now find Pokemon on the water, which I realize when a Staryu decides to pop in and say hi. After getting enough berries to fill a quarter of a Snorlax's stomach, I head back to Saffron City and finish what I started at the Fighting Dojo, where I was given a choice between 2 Pokemon, Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan. I took Hitmonlee and headed to the Silphco building, where Jesse and James shoved past the Team Rocket guard, letting me get into the building. But it was getting late, so I decided to wrap it up for the day. My Pokédex was at 68 Pokemon, which sounds great for one day, but that didn't account for my living dex. I had 75 Pokemon that could count in my boxes at the time, which sounds really good. There are many Pokemon that weren't evolved, so if I sent them to Pokemon Home, I would probably have around maybe 60 Pokemon, so I knew that I would have to do better tomorrow. On day 2, I really wanted to make a ton of progress. Since my previous Nidoran had evolved into Nidorino and I hadn't caught another one to fill the gap, I decided to do that real quick. And then immediately after, my game crashed. Another great start. That was the only game crash I had during the entire playthrough, so it's weird that it happened after catching an early route Pokemon. I managed to catch a Poliwag and the Nidoran on the next load though, so it was fine. I went on to Route 23, which you're normally only supposed to go to once you have every gym badge, but each badge check is separated across different gates, so I was able to catch a pretty high level Magikarp quite easily. But I didn't find the Poliwhirl I was looking for, so I just left. I went back to Route 10 and surfed to head over to the Kanto power plant, but before going in, I found a Thunderstone outside so I could finally evolve one of my Pikachu into Raichu. All of the Pokemon here are Pokemon that you can't find anywhere else in the game, with the exception of Coughing and Wheezing. And Chansey if you want to count that. Immediately upon entering, I found an Electabuzz, as well as caught more rare Pokemon like Magneton, Electrode, and Wheezing. Even better is that Wartortle and Charmeleon finally evolved into Blastoise and Charizard. And then at the end of the power plant awaited an incredibly powerful Pokemon, one that brings lightning down from the heavens. So what I did was I grabbed my Pokeballs, and I ran the heck out of there. But I'll be back. Now that I was back outside the power plant, I decided to start my first actual hunt for a rare Pokemon, Dratini. While there are rare spawn Pokemon like I mentioned before, those work differently than on a normal encounter table. Out of all of the Pokemon that can spawn on the water, Dratini only has a measly 4% chance of spawning. Still, I sprayed on my lure and then this happened.
That fast? And it's a Dragonair? Wait, well, why isn't... Okay, well, my co-op's not working for some reason. Okay. Let's see if I can catch a Dragonair. By myself. And I did it in the first ball. What? Oh my god, that's insane. I actually found a Dragonair before I found a Dratini, and it was... I didn't think I would find it that fast. How?
Yeah, so I somehow managed to find a wild Dragonair before I found a Dratini. 55 seconds after applying the lure. That has to be a world record, right? Just to clarify, Dragonair is undoubtedly the rarest Pokemon in the area, with a minuscule chance of 1% to appear, and I found it before its pre-evolution. So that means Dratini will come soon, right? It took 11 minutes. 11 minutes doesn't sound long, and it really isn't, but what made it longer was my natural enemy, Tentacool. I'd already caught one earlier, so I didn't need it again, but Tentacool and its evolution are, to my knowledge, the only Pokemon in the entire game who will actively hunt you down, even when they can't reach you. This isn't helped by the fact that I found a Tentacool that took me 18 Ultra Balls just to catch it. Which isn't helped by the fact that Dratini took 3 balls to catch, even though its evolution got caught in 1. Let's Go has absolutely abysmal catching mechanics when it comes to Pokemon that aren't in the center of the screen, which isn't helped by the fact that they don't explain how to actually do it at all. I just sat there flinging around my Joy-Cons like a freaking idiot. Not fun. Regardless, I went back to Fuchsia City and headed east to Route 15 where I tried searching for a Pinsir, another 1% encounter. I did manage to find a 5% Tauros, but I left for the Celadon department store once my lure wore off. There, I bought some evolution stones which I used to get the evolutions Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon. I also backtracked to Mount Moon to get another Moonstone to evolve one of my Nidorino into Nidoking. Something I noticed over the course of this challenge is that there are a surprising amount of Kanto Pokemon that are only found in one specific area throughout the entire region. For example, south of Pallet Town is this small river that connects to the ocean, but there's one patch of grass along the river which is the only place in the entire game where you can find Tangela. But this was also the way to Cinnabar Island where I was able to have my fossils revived into Ammonite and Aerodactyl. Then I went into the Cinnabar Mansion where the only captures were Magnemar and a Ditto, which I admittedly thought could only be found in the basement. Speaking of the basement, I found the secret key in there so I can now open the door to the Cinnabar Gym, but I'm gonna hold off on that for now. I go to the Seafoam Islands where I catch Pokemon like Jinx and immediately upon entering the room, Cloyster. Yes, it did take longer for me to find its pre-evolution shelter. How does this keep happening? I also found a Dugong almost immediately after, which is just wild. And Ammonite evolves into Amistar. After that, I head back to Pokemon Tower to not only catch a higher level Cubone, but also Second Haunter. Following my latest catching spree, I finally get back to the main objective of getting gym badges. The kind man at the front points out how I have exactly 100 Pokemon registered in my Pokédex, which makes me feel great about my progress before he reveals himself to be the gym leader Koga. I have to navigate through an invisible wall in his gym, but the funny part is, if you do some maneuvers, there's only one gym trainer you're required to fight, which is just insane to me. Koga was definitely the most difficult gym leader I'd faced so far, but Pidgeot helped big time against his Golbat while Eevee took care of the rest, even breaking through his poison. After defeating Koga, I get the Soul Badge and a Marowak and then head back to Saffron so I can finally enter Silph. There I meet up with Trace and also Blue, who wants to challenge me to prove if I'm capable enough to help fight Team Rocket. Eevee absolutely destroys his Exeggutor and Charizard, and then I head into the insane maze that is the company building, where I find Archer and beat him up in a multi-battle alongside Trace. I also find a man who gives me a Lapras. Then I fight Jesse and James for the last time, and this fight is much easier when you have a Psychic-type move in a Pidgeot. Giovanni gets obliterated again, and the President gives me a Master Ball. Outside of Silph, I find a man who gives me Porygon, and then I go to challenge the gym, reaching Sabrina in under 2 minutes. Sabrina was pretty difficult as well, especially since Charizard got put to sleep, but I still won in the end. Back at the Cinnabar gym, I show off how much of a no-lifer I am by answering every single question right without hesitation and douse Blaine's flames, giving me my 7th gym badge. I really need to go touch grass. Outside, Trace shows up and leads me back to Viridian City, where we find out the gym leader still hasn't returned, so we head back to Professor Oak's lab. Blue gives us Keystones, and I get the Mega Stones for the starters, and I go out to find out that the Viridian gym leader is back. Are you kidding me? I was just there! Turns out Giovanni is the leader of Viridian City's gym, and you'd think the final battle against him would actually be difficult for once. But nope, he's just as pathetic. In any case, I can now challenge the Pokémon League. Before then, I have to fight Trace on Route 22 for the final time, where I use Mega Evolution for the first time on Charizard, and take home the victory. I did catch an Execute on Route 23, but then I remembered there was something I had to do. Something I'd run away from. Until now. So I went back to Cerulean City, flew east on Charizard, and went back into the power plant. Then, I was face to face with the legendary Pokémon once again, and I challenged it to a battle. It knocked out Eevee pretty quickly, but he managed to burn it before going down, so I sent in Venusaur to deal some solid damage with Sludge Bomb before using a Max Revive on Eevee, who then defeated it with a Headbutt. All I had to do now was throw one Master Ball, and Zapdos was mine. After that, I ended the day ready to challenge the Pokémon League with 106 Pokémon registered to the Pokédex. But I still had less in my living dex, so I knew that I had to catch and evolve everything that I missed tomorrow. This was it. The final stretch before reaching the Pokémon League. It was finally time to enter Victory Road. There were many challenges ranging from regular trainers to puzzles involving giant pillars, but there were also Pokemon to catch like Machoke and a scary encounter with a Hitmonchan. Please don't let that Hitmonchan despawn. Oh, thank God. I also had a Meowth that I let chill in my party until it evolved into Persian, which I would come to regret later. I also saw another legendary Pokemon, but I left it behind again. And at long last, I was here. Indigo Plateau. I made some last minute preparations, and then I went in. Okay, so basically I was going to do like a cool montage for this, but I sort of ran out of ideas. I defeated Lance and became champion of the Kanto region. Or so I thought, because I had to face the real final battle, a fight against Professor Oak. Or not. You see, dear viewer, the champion of the Kanto region, and the final trainer standing in our way is none other than our rival, Trace. That's right, I lied. Now then, let's finish this. Once and for all. Yeah, once again I was going to do a cool montage here, but yeah, again, I ran out of ideas. Also, what the heck was I on when I wrote the script back in August 2025? Jeez! And with that, I've been Pokemon Let's Go for the very first time. So, what will I do next? Why, I'll play it again, of course! Remember earlier in the video when I mentioned version exclusives? Yeah, there are some Pokemon that you cannot find in your version no matter how hard you look for them. There are also 4 Pokemon that evolved by trade, so I would have needed to start a new file anyway. This is why I mentioned Graveler, Haunter, and Machoke earlier on. I'm glad I kept my Scarlet and Violet Switch OLED because without it, this challenge would be impossible. Also, if you've enjoyed the video so far, then make sure to like and subscribe. This lets me know that you like this content, and I might do more challenges for games like this. In any case, I restart my journey on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, name my rival after the greatest video game series of all time, name my Pikachu after the greatest video game of all time, and catch my first version exclusive in this game, Oddish. I beat up my rival again, and then I head straight to Viridian Forest to start catch comboing Oddish to find the last Bulbasaur I need. Oddish completely decimates Brock, and I catch 2 Sandshrew and Mankey. It's weird how Route 3 has 2 version exclusives in Let's Go Pikachu, while Let's Go Eevee only has 1. I decided that now would be a good time to start trading some Pokemon, so I bring some exclusives over to my Let's Go Eevee file while also bringing some Pokemon into Let's Go Pikachu to evolve, being Graveler into Golem, Haunter into Gengar, and Machoke into Machamp. But I realized I was missing something, and as it turns out, I forgot to get Kadabra. So I went searching for one. While I did eventually find the Kadabra, I decided it would take too long to find another one, so I just caught an Abra that I would evolve. Being champion has some nice perks, but the big one is being able to fly in the air on the back of Charizard, which proved very useful for my next hunt, Pinsir. I'd tried this hunt before, but didn't exactly make any progress. So yeah, I found another Dragonite before I found Pinsir. I'm actually insane. While I did eventually find Pinsir not too long after, I knew I wasn't done with Route 15. However, there were other areas nearby that I hadn't visited at all yet, so I went over to Route 13 to catch Kingler and Farfetch'd. After catching those 2, I headed right over to the water that was less than 20 feet away to try and find Horsey.
Are you kidding? That's insanely fast.
Another 5% encounter that I find before its 30% pre-evolution. Bulbasaur evolved into Ivysaur, meaning that I finally completed that evolution line, and Abra evolved into Kadabra after catching Horsey. I did try to find some rare Starmie and Gyarados spawns, but I couldn't find either, so I just caught a Squirtle in the Seafoam Islands. I wasn't able to find the last Squirtle I needed, but I did find Slowbro, which caused Oddish to evolve into Gloom, and Charmander into Charmeleon. Then I used a Leaf Stone to evolve Gloom into Vileplume, but I'm gonna keep him around for a little bit. Ultimately, I decided to just go and catch some duplicate Pokemon to evolve instead of finding their evolutions in the wild, so I go catch a Magikarp, Staryu, Execute, and Nidorina, as well as a spare Chansey that causes Sandshrew to evolve into Sandslash. After that, I evolved my Nidorina into Nidoqueen and Staryu into Starmie before going to find Goldeen. Don't know how I missed that. I found its evolution Seeking first again to the surprise of absolutely no one, and my other Oddish evolved into Gloom. I went into Diglett's cave to find Dugtrio before trying to find another Squirtle. Unfortunately for me, luck was for once not on my side. My luck was so bad that I actually went to start a catch combo on Bellsprout, which wasn't very fun. But that wasn't even the worst part. No, it was not, my dear viewer. For you see, I had almost caught 11 Bellsprout, which is when the rare spawn chances finally begin to improve, until this worthless, useless piece of unloved garbage weed decided to do this.
That breaks my combo. I have to do that all over again.
That's right. Pokemon can run from you in this game. Why did they add this? The catching mechanics can already be miserable enough. I'm losing my mind after playing this game for the last 3 days. I hate this stupid place. I just catch comboed Pidgey, which got me both Gyarados and Squirtle. Now, some of you might be wondering what my stance is on Mega Victory Bell. Yeah, I like it. I think it's silly. My hatred extends solely to Bellsprout. I feel bad for Starly, though. Since I was nearby, I decided to finally go into the area you can only access once you become champion, Cerulean Cave. In here, I caught rare Pokemon like Poliwhirl, Lickitung, and Golduck, as well as Squirtle and Mankey evolving into Wartortle and Primeape, meaning that I'm finally done with the starters. I also found a Poliwrath, which I had no idea could even spawn in the wild, but it ran away. I did a little bit of searching around and totally didn't see anything cool at all whatsoever, before heading back to Cinnabar Island to revive a Helix fossil I found into another Omanyte. I also went back to Celadon to buy a Leaf Stone and Water Stone to evolve Execute into Exeggutor and Poliwhirl into Poliwrath. Now it was time to make some more progress in Let's Go Pikachu, so I traded my Pokemon to bring the trait evolutions back to Let's Go Eevee, as well as evolve Kadabra into Alakazam. But I also traded Vileplume back to Let's Go Pikachu. You see, the whole time I was in Cerulean Cave, I had Vileplume in my party, and I caught every single Chansey I saw. This caused him to get up to level 41, and since he was caught on this Let's Go Pikachu save file, he was fully obedient. Long story short, I absolutely ripped through the game. I only got 4 badges this time since I only had to get as far as Fuchsia City, and I also made some more progress getting Pokemon along the way. In Mount Moon, I got the Dome Fossil this time and revived it into Kabuto on Cinnabar Island. I also caught 5 Growlithe in order to get Persian to ride on, meaning that the earlier evolution was a waste of time and I could have used that experience for Zapdos. Oh well. I somehow find a Kangaskhan in Rock Tunnel, which saves me a hunt, as well as catch Grimer and Muck in the power plant. Now there is one more Pokemon I have to catch in this game. Scyther. Scyther is the version-exclusive counterpart to Pinsir, and as such, it's found in the exact same locations, so it shouldn't be that bad. The problem is, I'm impatient, and playing Pokemon Let's Go for practically 3 days straight really starts to take a toll on you. I saw the big wings, and I got so excited for a moment. Isn't Chansey rarer than Scyther? Like, without a catch combo? Maybe if I look hard enough, I can see that girl over there. She's a Scyther in disguise. Look at that green. Look at that green she's wearing. There's no doubt about it. She's a Scyther, hiding from the rest of the world in a human costume. Somehow, how big is Scyther again? You know, Chansey, if you could just be a Scyther, that would be great. That would be really cool. Thanks. That is not a Scyther. Oh my god! Finally! Okay, Scyther's still pretty hard to catch. I'm finally done with Let's Go Pikachu. I'm free. I can live again. I was free from Let's Go Pikachu, and I decided that was a good place to cut the recording for the night. But I stayed up for a while to try to farm a certain item. And then I found a shiny Golbat. By the time I started recording, it was already late at night, and that's because I spent the whole day trying to get the 3 Master Balls I needed from Cerulean Cave, so I wouldn't have to sit there struggling to catch the last few I needed. I had already caught all the other 147 Pokemon. All I was missing were the 3 legendaries Articuno, Moltres, and Mewtwo. For Articuno, I went back to the Seafoam Islands and pushed a couple pillars to surf to its small area of land, catching it easily. I had to go back to Victory Road and I struggled to remember where Moltres was, but once I found it, it was an easy capture. Then, for the 150th Pokemon, I went back into Cerulean Cave and progressed downwards to the bottom floor. I encountered Mewtwo, and with one last Master Ball, I was finished. After that, I transferred all of the Pokemon into home and went to bed because at the time I had screen time locks on my phone that would activate past 9:30. So, I caught all 150 Pokemon in Kanto. Mew does not count for the total since it's a mythical. Pokédex. And if we go to games... No, don't. Okay, wait. May have to... Games. And here we have the Kanto Pokédex. Brilliant! We're one step closer to fulfilling my dream of creating a grand Pokédex. I see you've registered every single Pokemon in the Kanto Pokédex. You are most certainly the right one to entrust with this monumental task. Absolutely brilliant. I hope you keep up the fantastic work. And we get a mystery gift sent to our inbox. And if we go to mystery gifts, go to our gift box, we see Game Pokédex completion in commemoration. And this Shiny Meltan is ours. But yeah, if we look at our Pokemon, every single Kanto Pokemon is here in home. With some extras. I still need to transfer my main save file. Violet Pokemon back there. And every single Kanto Pokemon is mine. And here it is. Shiny Meltan. It's genuinely wild to me that it only took 4 days to get this Pokemon. This is the first time I've ever done a challenge like this, and it gave me a brand new appreciation for Let's Go that I didn't have before. I really want to do another challenge like this for other Pokemon games, and even the Yokai Watch games at some point. Don't expect that anytime soon though. This video took me almost a year to get out because I procrastinated really badly. Plus there were times I felt burnt out from school, so it was hard for me to get motivation to edit in the first place. But for the ones that stuck around until the end, I wholeheartedly thank you for watching. If I do another challenge like this, I think I already know which game I'm going to tackle, but leave your suggestions in the comments for other challenges I could do. I'd love to hear them. With that, I'm Poké-kai PJ, and I'll see you next time.